Oh my god, what? He's so lazy. Another tier list. You're probably thinking, like, why are you relegating such a monumental topic to this, like, very haphazard, impromptu video? Well, basically, I've kind of shot myself in the foot because when I started out, I was like, eventually I'm going to make a video where I rank all of the games. That just seemed like a natural kind of progression for the channel. But as I keep talking about them, I realize, like, I'm kind of giving away my opinions on these games as I go through these kind of retrospectives or world rankings or whatever. You know, I've already revealed like what my top 3 are, so that's already kind of anticlimactic. If you've been paying attention, you know what that's going to look like. But for those of you who are either new or maybe missed any time I mentioned how I would rank these games, this will all be a surprise for you, possibly. I anticipate that I'm going to have a couple of controversial opinions, but you know, when I do rankings, it's always under the assumption that I'm going by my personal favorite, not what I would deem the best. You know, I keep a top 50 video game list. Beyond that, you know, it gets kind of hazy. Like, you know, once we're getting into like hundreds and stuff, it's like I don't know. When I say like this is my top 10 or this isn't my top 50, I would in no way impose that opinion onto other people or say like, yo, Kingdom Hearts is like a better game than Ocarina of Time or whatever. I'm trying to figure out how I want to go about doing this. If I should go in order of just top to bottom or bottom to top, or maybe well we'll do order of release just so it's not so linear. Okay, well, I think anybody who's seen even one video on this channel would know that I got KH1 number 1 S tier. You know, I could talk for hours about what this game means to me and how much good it does. I mean, just aside from it being the first and setting the foundation and, you know, being the origin point for all the magic happens, it's just got this air of mystery and this sort of darkish atmosphere. I know I said in the Chain of Memories video that Chain of Memories is the darkest game, and I stand by that, but Kingdom Hearts, the first game, is just like there's an apocalypse happening, this active end of the world, like literally worlds are ending, and just how the game is set up, I feel like there's a really consistent, solid moral and message to Kingdom Hearts 1, which is not always apparent in the other installments. I would say 1 and Chain of Memories probably have the most clear morals, or messages at least. Like, KH1 is about, I mean, it boils down to the scene in Hall of Ashen, my friends are my power. You know, Sora is this ordinary kid. He's not like this King Arthur who's like this chosen one who pulls a sword out of the stone and is bestowed these, you know, life-changing, world-saving abilities. Like, he's got the hand-me-down. Like, the Kingdom Key, the Keyblade is a hand-me-down from Riku to Sora. You know, he's the backup guy. He's vice president. He's in the line of succession. He wasn't supposed to have it. It's really cool to have a protagonist who just isn't this godly chosen one. He's just a guy, and his strength comes from the people he meets. I said it, I believe, in one of the KH1 world ranking videos, but like the real world equivalent to that, and maybe the more cynical version of it would be it's all about who you know. You know, it's like networking. Like Sora would have a really solid LinkedIn profile, which that's really the moral of KH1, is to network. No, but really it's like we draw strength from the people around us. That is the moral of the game. If the series was just this one-off little flash in the pan Disney Square crossover that, you know, it tied up in one game in 2002 and that was it, you know, we wouldn't be talking about it as much as we are now probably, but it would still be, I would still hold it in this high of a regard. As one solitary package, there's just no topping it. In terms of the exploration, I've never liked worlds in the series more than I liked them in KH1. KH3 comes very close for me, but I've always loved the like tight and contained, very, I don't know what the word would be, it's a very homey feeling in most of those KH1 rooms. Everything's tangible. You can jump on everything and interact with most objects, and I think from KH2 up until Dream Drop, it's felt, or it did feel like you're less so in a world and more so kind of on a guided tour of a world. So yeah, KH1's physical worlds have always been the tops for me. And the world selection too. I think it's probably the most solid out of the mainline titles. You just can't beat that initial magic of playing that game as a kid and seeing all these movies brought to life. That's what drew us in the first time around. After the first game, nobody's coming for the Disney stuff unless you, for some reason, start halfway through the series, which I feel like a couple of critics do because they pop in KH3 and they're like, what the fuck's going on? Well, there's 14 games that you didn't play, so why would you watch the 9th Star Wars movie without watching the other ones? I would advise against that. I've been rambling about KH1. It's almost like there's too much to say off the cuff, so I'm not even going to continue. You guys get it. I've talked about it for literally hours. We're going to move on to chronologically the next game, which is Chain of Memories. In terms of like the tiers here, like I don't want to put anything in F tier because F would imply a failure. Even, you know, I'm not going to say it to spoil it, but like even my least favorite games here, I'm not going to say F. So I'm just trying to map out where everything's going to go. This is probably going to be, if you didn't watch a Chain of Memories video, it's definitely going to be shocking, but like I'm going to put this in a B. I don't want to be too redundant because I literally just put out a video about this a couple days ago. But Chain of Memories for me, it's the poster child for underrated in the series. Everyone poops on it because of the combat, and probably because of the recycled, you know, Disney content and the, you know, not super compelling world design. Like, you want to talk about boring and uninteresting world design, you know, Chain of Memories is these is it isometric? I feel like that's the right word, but I feel like I just kind of pulled it out of my ass. But you know, like the pseudo-random dungeons and, you know, literally every world has the same, you know, how like 15 to 20 or so layouts, but, you know, skinned differently. But for me, like the intrigue of it all is what elevates it to this level. The organization, incredibly compelling. And I don't mind the card system. I grow to like it. Maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome, but like after a while, it feels satisfying. Once you learn the ins and outs of it, learn how to, you know, put together sleights and make a good deck. Like the process of collecting cards, even if it's kind of mundane, is satisfying to me. Maybe I'm lowest common denominator in that regard, but I didn't talk about it, and a couple people pointed this out in the comments, and I posted the video on KH13. But I didn't talk about Riku's story because I didn't feel like I had a great portion of the script for that, but like getting to play as Riku was like this amazing surprise for me. I made a joke in the first part of the Chain of Memories video, like that I saw the Riku health bar in the commercial. No, I was not that observant as a child. I did not notice that. That's revisionist history. When I beat Chain of Memories as Sora and then saw the title screen show up with Riku and say Reverse Rebirth, I was like, what the fuck? And I had no idea there was like an entire third of the game left to be played from an entirely different perspective. There are 2 other members of the organization in this castle that I had no idea about. I mean, that's crazy. I would imagine for people who were a little bit older than I was when they played the game and maybe more tapped into like, you know, the internet and, you know, being on top of a game when it's, you know, before it's coming out and like keeping up with the news and everything, they probably knew that there was a Riku story after the Sora campaign, but like I had no idea. Like that's like a Mew is under the truck thing, except it's actually real. Like it's this kind of thing that sounds almost made up that you get to play as Riku. And I was saying in a response that I put somewhere, like getting to use like dark mode and like whip out dark aura and use that on enemies, that's crazy. Like when does a game let you take on the persona of like a really difficult boss from the first installment and then use that boss's abilities on like random Mook Heartless? Like that's so cool. Actually, for those of you familiar with like the Pac-Man World series, they actually do that in Pac-Man World 3, which is a terrible game, but you get to like play as the mech villain from the first game. But those are like the 2 instances I can think where that's a thing. But I'm also, you know, I haven't played every video game in the world. But point stands, getting to play as Riku, getting to whip out all those cool ass moves, just it's unforgettable. It's a very memorable moment for me. That might be the most controversial one, maybe. Well, we'll see. All right, moving on. So KH2 is chronologically next, and you know, I feel like if you're watching the videos on the channel, it seems like I hate this game. I don't. We're going from what I think is the most underrated to the most overrated game in the series. That being said, it's still very good. It's still in my top 10. It's going to be in the A tier. I know it's blasphemous to not have this number 1 because it's always called the perfect sequel. It's always said that it's improved. Like I've heard multiple people, you know, doing retrospectives or writing reviews or just in comments, like everyone says KH2 did everything better than the first game. I've never seen that. It's a great game. You know, it expands on the foundation set by 1. It's a natural progression. I mean, the combat's obviously better and deeper. But in terms of, you know, the world design, in terms of there being a self-contained message to the game, in terms of the atmosphere, it's all great. It just doesn't match up to the first game for me. A huge part of what has me put two beneath one is like the Disney content. I talked about filler in the Chain of Memories video. I've talked about it in the KH3 defense video. But like that portion of the game from your first Hollow Bastion visit to your second one, like that's all garbage, you know? It's not garbage, but I'm just like, in terms of relevance to what's going on in the larger sense of the story, it's not super memorable. It's all very insulated. Whereas KH1 and KH3 and, you know, other games on this list, they make an effort to more consistently integrate the overarching plot elements into the Disney worlds. And maybe I just weigh that too heavily, and you know, maybe I'm not weighing the combat heavily enough. All right, let's just recenter. KH2 is undeniably a great video game. I feel like somebody has to call out its bullshit sometimes. That's all I'm doing. It's a great game. It's my number 8 in my top 10. So what would chronologically be next? Is that would that be Days? I think Coded might have come out on the phones in Japan before Days did, but we'll just go with Days next. So I'm not putting anything in F, so that Days is never going to be an F for the record. But I'm trying to figure out like what is the baseline here? Like what's going to be the worst one? Well, I think I know. I'm going to put Days in D. And I'm mostly talking about that from like a playing the video game perspective, and I haven't played Days since I was in middle school, so maybe it deserves a replay, but it never struck me as anything that was mechanically super interesting or fun to play. It's hard for me to even remember what it was like to play it. Like I know that there's a mission mode where you can play as all the organization members, which was crazy, and even Donald and Goofy, and I think Mickey as well. I mean, the story is the meat of Days, and some people don't even like that. I tend to like it quite a bit. I love the relationship between Roxas and Shion and Axel. I love getting to see the organization just kind of be dudes in Larkseen, and, you know, just hanging out, having this lounge area where they just like, you know, bitch about work. Like it's almost fanficky. Even in 2009 when I first played it, I was like, this reminds me of like comics that people would draw, like about like, oh, what do the organization members do in their free time? Like, do they hang out and talk shit about each other, or like, you know, like what always sticks out for me when I think about Days, you know, aside from like the super relevant, you know, Roxas, Shion plot stuff, is like Demyx whining about Larkseen being a witch, which is obviously he's calling her a bitch in an E10 game, but it was always like this really cool, relatable side of the group that we always kind of imagined existed but never got confirmation about until we had this game. Really the whole game is a big fanfic. Like, what if there was a game where you played as a member of the organization and you like did missions? Like, it just sounds like something that like was pitched like on a Tumblr blog somewhere. I'm not saying it's a bad thing either. Like, it's better as an experience than it is as a game. I don't think anybody would really disagree with that. I don't think anybody is saying, no, Days is like super fun to play. Like, I always go back and, you know, sink some time into playing these boss fights on 358. Like, it's, you know, no one's doing that. And, you know, I think Days kind of suffers from not having any version of it available beyond the DS original. I mean, I know they, you know, redid all of the important cutscenes for the remixes, but like, you can't physically play it on anything but a Nintendo DS, and at this point, it's, what is it? An 11-year-old game, which is crazy. I remember my dad bringing that game home for me in middle school. I think I was in 6th or 7th grade. Dude, this game hits so hard when you're in middle school, because it's like, you know, everyone's wearing a black coat, everyone's emo phase, you know. I feel like I was too hard on it, but maybe I'm being a bit generous. I don't know. You let me know. You'd let me know if I was too hard or too easy on Days. All right, what would be next? It's either Coded or BBS, but I don't remember. I know Birth by Sleep definitely released after Coded was out, but Recoded, I'm just gonna do Recoded first because I don't feel like putting it off. I just want to get out of the way. Obviously, it's, you know, if I'm not putting anything in F, it's gonna be E tier. I almost don't remember anything about Recoded, and I did play it. I played through most of it when I was actually on vacation in Disney World in, I want to say, late middle school, early high school. I played through most of it and then like got to the Hollow Bastion part, and I was like, I don't even want to finish this. I actually just finished Coded, I think like a year or so before I created the channel. It was like right before KH3 released, I think. Because I was like, well, I gotta at least say that I beat Coded, you know, to prove to nobody. Like, who's gonna come up to me like, hey, Pat, did you beat Recoded? And I'm like, yeah, of course I did. Of course. There's boxes and Pete. Like, and honestly, even though I just beat the game within the last, you know, year and a half, I don't know what happens in this game. It's very strange. I think you don't even go to like all of the KH1 worlds. You go to Olympus, which is like the RPG world. I think you go to Wonderland. I think Agrabah, and Hollow Bastion, and I don't think any others. I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's pretty ambitious that it's like trying to do all of these different gameplay styles. Like that's the most memorable part of it for me. Like you think of Coded, you think, oh, that's the one where you know, do all these different kind of gimmicks for each world, and also there are these data cube things. I think Coded really starts the trend of like, we have to make everything relevant to the plot. Like people are already talking about Melody of Memory. Is it Melody of Memory or Memories? Holy fuck. Okay, I'm back. My internet is definitely not working. Thankfully, I don't need to have internet connection in order to finish this tier list, so that's fine. We're just not going to know if it's Melody of Memory or Melody of Memories. Regardless, what was I saying? Oh yeah, people are bitching about like, oh, Nomura has to make Melody of Memories relevant, like why can't it just be a rhythm game? And I do kind of feel that, like, can't we just have a spin-off that doesn't, you know, have super, you know, relevant plot implications? Coded is definitely that, like, why couldn't it have just been, like, a, you know, quirky little Cage 1 influenced phone game? You know, you want to make it for DS again, fine, but, like, do we have to try and tie all this stuff in? Like, we were referencing it in Cage 3, like, in no universe at any point did I think we're going to be, you know, referencing Coded stuff in Cage 3 for even, like, the 2 minutes that it is referenced. It's just, it's not memorable, it's not super fun, nothing important happens, I couldn't tell you what happens in it. I mean, I'm sure there's at least 1 or 2 videos out there being like, you know, guys, Coded is not as bad as everyone says it is. And I'm sure it's not. Maybe if I played it again with a fresh set of eyes, I would find more good things to say about it. But it has a very hazy point in my memory. I don't think it deserves a lot of recognition or time spent on it. That's enough on Coded. Okay, Birth by Sleep. I have witnessed Birth by Sleep become this sort of punching bag in the community. And whatever you want to call that, that's like such a vague description. Like, what is the community? I don't know. YouTube, Reddit, you know, forums. Like, who knows? Who cares, really? But, is my internet back? It's Melody of Memory. 1 memory. Got it. All right. Now we can sleep easy. For those of you who didn't Google that while I was bitching about it. Anyway, Birth by Sleep has become like this. Oh, it's not that good. Birth by Sleep is bad. The story is stupid. I don't know. I never saw that. For me, Birth by Sleep is the closest one in the series to matching that energy and atmosphere that Cage 1 imparted, and I think that's purposeful. You know, in terms of like visiting the so-called princess worlds, like the Snow White, the Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella worlds, all of the parallels between Terra Aqua Advance or Riku Kairi, using Simple and Clean as the theme song. You know, it is more of a Cage 1 than it is a Cage 2 or any other game in the series. People always bitch about, oh, Terra's so dumb. How can he not see that Master Xehanort's evil? Because he's a video game character. He doesn't like. We don't have the same eyes that Terra does. You know, Terra does not have the same perspective that we do. He can't tell that Master Xehanort is evil. Like I don't know how to explain this to you. It's just like, these characters do not have this sort of foreknowledge. They don't have this foresight. They cannot see the way we see things. I know it seems like it's obvious that Master Xehanort's evil because he's bald and he does weird things with his fingers and he talks like this and he's like always hunched over and talking about darkness. That doesn't mean anything to characters in a video game. I don't know, maybe some of the disdain for Birth by Sleep is that, you know, once it was translated to a console, you can see some of the flaws a bit more. But again, like, in the same way that I don't hold the Recom stuff against Chain of Memories, the experience, I don't hold a PSP game being on PS4 against Birth by Sleep. You know, like, if you're gonna port a PSP game to PS4, then you're gonna get a PSP game on the PS4. Like, I don't know what you expected to have there. Did you expect them to, like, completely overhaul it? And how would they do so? Like, the game was originally designed to be played in kind of these short mobile bursts because it's on a handheld. I don't know how you can be upset at that when they translate that to a console. I think most people just wanted to see the game on the big screen, so. And I think maybe some of the flack that the game gets, and maybe rightfully so, is that, like, you're experiencing each world 3 times. And I get that to a degree, but, like, in a way, it's made up for by the fact that it always felt like something important was happening. Like, these characters their paths are crossing each other throughout the narrative. It doesn't feel like you're just, like, doing errands for Disney characters for 2/3 of the game and then everything important happens. Like, things are broken up, the characters run into each other, they discuss what's going on. You know, when I think of that specifically, I think of, like, Terra and Aqua talking in Castle of Dreams. Like, one of them's coming in and one of them's leaving, and they're basically like ships in the night, and they're talking about it. It's just a way to make things feel more relevant and important as it's happening, instead of just backloading or frontloading all of the cool and important stuff. And then this was the first game to, like, do the command deck style. You know, again, I don't think anybody prefers that to the mainline way of doing things, but I never disliked it. It was always just like a fresh take on the combat. And just, it's visually interesting too. and getting to swap these things out and getting to see more than the same, you know, slashy horizontal finisher moves over and over again. Like I couldn't tell you what any of the combat abilities in 2 or 3 are called. They're not super memorable. You just equip them and don't ever think about them ever again. But with Birth by Sleep, like, you at least, you know what's in your arsenal at all times. I always felt like I had a better sense of what I had at my disposal in these command deck games, which doesn't make them better by any means, but in a way it makes the actual like nuts and bolts of the combat a bit more memorable and recognizable. Oh, I just realized I haven't placed it anywhere. It's gonna go right above Chain of Memories. Birth by Sleep is the other game. So obviously the mainline 3 are in my top 50, in my top 10. Birth by Sleep is not in my top 10, but it's like, I want to say it's mid-20s or so. Maybe even in the teens, I'm not sure. Which I know seems ludicrous to people, because people would say this isn't even worthy of like a top 200. But I don't know, it's got a warm special place in my memories. I bought a PSP specifically for this game and basically nothing else. I think I had Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, and I played that for like 10 minutes and I didn't like the controls. Maybe I was always gonna force myself to love Birth by Sleep because, like, I'm pretty sure I spent my own money on my PSP. That wasn't like a gift. So I will say, back in the day when they were, you know, that stretch of time between 2 and Dream Drop, I mean including Dream Drop really, because it was that stretch where like every single game is on a different console or a different device. Super frustrating. You know, nobody liked that part, especially if you were a kid like I was growing up during that era. Like, I had to buy a PSP. Like, thankfully I had a DS by the time Days was out. You know, not that Coded was like this to die for experience, but I had a DS to play that when it was ready. Thankfully I had a 3DS when Dream Drop came out. But like, I really feel for the people who had to like fucking scramble or just watch the games on YouTube. Like, nobody should have to do that. I never understood why it wasn't just like a Sony exclusive series, but now it's on Xbox too, whatever. But nowadays it's like, I got big boy money, I don't care. You want to put a fucking Kingdom Hearts game on the Switch? I'll go buy an Xbox Series X, whatever. I never bought an Xbox console before, but if you're gonna put a Kingdom Hearts game on that shit, fuck it. I'll be out there day one, you know? I got the big boy cash, it's fine. Right, Birth by Sleep. I won't say it's like, oh, it's so underrated. I think it's not properly rated. I think people are too hard on it. I think people really liked the game until like 2013 or 2014, which is, I guess, around when they ported it for the remixes. I thought it was great on PSP. I think it's above replacement level on PS3 and PS4. I think people are just big meanies about it. Alright, Dream Drop Distance is what I call replacement level Kingdom Hearts. It's not super fun to play by my estimation. I've played it maybe 1.5 times, maybe 2 full times. Yeah, I played it originally on 3DS and then once on PS4. And I probably started or abandoned a playthrough on one or both of those consoles. I think this is the most like abysmal world selection in the series. Let me just think. Well, Traverse Town was really cool to see again. That's the highlight of the game as far as worlds. Oh, okay. Actually, Symphony of Sorcery is... I don't want to spoil it because I'm probably going to do world rankings, but like, Symphony of Sorcery is so good. It's really cool. Everything besides Traverse Town and Symphony of Sorcery is like, what the fuck? The Grid? Who wanted to see The Grid? Who wanted to see the fucking Tron sequel movie? Nobody. Nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted Country of the Musketeers. Are you kidding me? This fucking direct-to-VHS or DVD Mickey and Donald and Goofy movie? Like, of all the properties we have, that's what we're doing? Why would we pick this deliberately confusing property where it's like another version of Sora or another version of Mickey and Donald and Goofy who like don't know about like Kingdom Hearts stuff? Like, why would you even do that? Just fucking do Pocahontas or something. Do Aristocats. Do fucking Treasure Planet, for God's sake. Not to mention, like, the whole idea of the sleeping worlds never made sense to me. I couldn't explain it to you. Like, if I really thought about it, I guess I could. Like, the worlds that were lost during KH1 but weren't fully restored and they were sleeping instead of being engulfed by darkness. But like, what? Like, why? Why do we have to do sleeping things? Why can't we just like do a mini little adventure in a real quote unquote world? Why can't we just have Sora and Riku like go to 6 Disney worlds and fucking, you know, help the people out and learn powers? I don't know why everything had to be based on dreams. And I was talking about this with Interlay Productions. He was saying, like, I think everything was just based around the concept of dropping. Like, they wanted to have this system where you switch between Sora and Riku, and they contextualized it through dreaming, and so everything had to be based around sleeping and dreams. Like, why couldn't we just like switch between Sora and Riku normally? Why do they have to be asleep to do it? I never understood it. Not to mention, like, this is where like, I'll defend the series. I'll say, like, it's really not that complicated. It's really not that convoluted. Like, the Heartless Nobody unversed stuff, like, I could explain that pretty succinctly to someone who's new to the series. I feel like I could get them caught up. I could get them understanding how things work. When it gets to this game, like, when it gets to time travel, when it gets to sleeping worlds, when it gets to, you know, hosting a part of your heart in somebody to make them a vessel, like, I still can't explain it. I have a YouTube channel based on this game series, and I cannot succinctly, like a functional, mentally stable adult, explain how the Dream Drop shenanigans work. I can't tell you. It's so needlessly confusing. I mean, time travel is always such a difficult and usually just not worth it thing. Like, it's just don't do it. If you have a series that's going for a decade and a half, why start introducing time travel elements into it? And that lesson was not learned by the time KH3 came out, because now, like, we're doing, like, world line stuff, you know, in the phone games and whatever's coming after KH3. Like, we're doing, not only are we doing time travel, but we're traveling between world lines. Why do we have to do every single confusing fiction trope? Let's just, like, let's dial it back a bit, man. In terms of playing it, like, Dream Drop is like the dreaded, oh, it's floaty. And yeah, it is. It's really floaty. When people say, like, KH3 is too floaty, like, no, man. KH3 feels rock fucking solid. Go back to Dream Drop. That game is floaty. It feels like the enemies aren't reacting to me hitting them. I hate that. The feedback just doesn't feel right. The Dream Eater's obviously a terrible, unmemorable gimmick. It's not quite as bad as KH2 Atlantica, but, like, I feel embarrassed when it's on my screen. Like, it's already hard for me to defend sometimes as a 23-year-old man, like, my obsession with this fucking Square Disney crossover series. That's already difficult enough, but when you throw in, like, these fucking Tamagotchi, Neopet, Pokemon, Build-A-Bear bullshit things, like, I don't want anyone walking into my room or seeing it on my screen, you know? It's easier to just switch to porn and talk about that instead. I don't want to tell you why I'm rubbing Meow Wow's belly and feeding him treats or throwing balloons at him. Just no, let's not. Why? Why do we have to do that? It makes way more sense when it's on a handheld device where it's like, all right, it's like a take care of your pets kind of thing. It's like a Nintendog sort of, whatever. Like, it was never something that appealed to me, but I get it. On PS4, and again, you can't hold it against the game when you're, you know, porting a portable game to a console. But, like, man, it feels especially useless and taking up space when you're, you know, dealing with that on PS4. Why? What a waste. What a waste of resources. I want to meet the people who came up with the Dream Eaters and just ask why. Why'd you do that? Okay, so I guess we're gonna do 0.2, which is, it's weird. Like, this is a demo. You know, this is not. I never contextualize this as, like, a full game, you know? This is like a prologue to 3 or an epilogue to Birth by Sleep. Story-wise, it makes more sense to group it together with Birth by Sleep. Gameplay and obviously graphics-wise, it makes more sense to group that in with KH3. I mean, I'm gonna put it right there, you know? It's basically a hype man for KH3. Like, when did that come out? 2017? God, I can't believe that was 2 full years before the full game. I mean, it had me so hyped. I was like, oh my god, shit is, like, moving. Like, we're getting there, you know? I remember really thinking, like, oh, KH3 is right on the horizon in 2013. Like, a year after Dream Drop, I was like, this game is coming out. 2013, I was a sophomore in high school. KH3 came out when I was a senior in college. That's so depressing. I spent so much time thinking it was right around the corner. But Birth by Sleep, or, you know, 0.2, Fragmentary Passage was like, no, really, it's coming. Like, you get to see part of KH3 at the end of that game. That's how it let us know, like, it's real, guys. It really is happening. We promise. Like, we have a cutscene fully fleshed out. The models are here. We have the voice actor. Sora is being voiced on a console. It's crazy. And just, like, playing as Aqua in the Dark Realm was a really cool, it's almost another, like, fanficky idea. It's like, what if there was a game where, you know, Aqua goes to the Realm of Darkness at the end of Birth by Sleep? What if we, 7 years later, had this little demo where you play as her and, like, go through, like, corrupted versions of the Birth by Sleep worlds? Like, it sounds like something that someone pitched online and they ran with it. And I think, you know, sometimes it doesn't work and sometimes it does. And I think in this regard it did. I remember being so blown away by the magic in this game, how fluid it felt. Sliding around on the Blizzard spell, like, moving around as you cast magic. I was like, oh my god, this feels so fucking good. I can't wait until this is a full-ass game. So that's why I'm going to put it in B tier. You know, if it was like a full game as Aqua and the Realm of Darkness, I might, like, move it up here. Like, you know, I think at most it would be above Chain of Memories. just because it's so short and, you know, there's not a whole lot of substance to it outside of like those ending portions, which again, all of the KH1 related stuff is obviously going to hit really hard with me. I don't even mind that it's kind of retconning stuff a little bit because I thought it was neat. Like even the fucking explaining why Mickey is wearing his traditional clothes or doesn't have a shirt or whatever. I thought it was funny. I was like, oh, okay, that's how they do that. That's how they explain that away. But like getting to see Riku on the other side of the door at the very end of KH1, getting to see Aqua on Depressed in the Islands and the end of the world. It's just like, oh man, that's cool. Whenever you have a new entry of a series kind of influencing your perspective on older entries, that's always fun. It doesn't ruin it. It doesn't cheapen any of it. It enhances it for me. Maybe that's not the same for everybody else, but for me, it was like, oh, that's cool. That adds more of perspective and more relevancy to both of these characters' storylines. They're both in close proximity as these important events are happening. So this is pretty anticlimactic, I guess. But like Union Cross is, you know, it's going to be below coded even. And here's the thing. It's a free Kingdom Hearts game. How much can you really dislike that? On the other hand, I'm going to be like the 900th person on the internet. 900th, more like fucking 900,000th person on the internet to say, nobody wants pay-to-play, microtransaction, in-game purchases. Like, nobody wants that bullshit. Obviously, this is not a super deep game. It's just a relatively shallow gacha game. You know, it's fun to collect the images and, you know, fling them at enemies. I've been playing a little bit of Dark Road. It seems to be... It's more engaging to play in terms of like physically like moving your fingers, but in terms of like there's no medals to collect as far as I know, or at least I'm not far enough in to know if that's the case. But I'll give it this, like it's fun to collect the medals, it's fun to use them, like everything feels like that's the point of a gacha game, is like the feedback is really good. The visuals are appealing, the sounds are appealing, it feels good to level up and get things and collect items. But, you know, again, to go back to the recoded thing, to go back to the melody memory thing, it's like, man, we gotta shoehorn super relevant stuff into this fucking not important free-to-play in-game purchase Kingdom Hearts game on my phone. No series should do this. This is like the one mainstream critique of the game that I always agree with. Like, why are we putting important stuff in this, what should be a spin-off side game, not canon installment? But the art style is cute. Again, the medals are fun to collect. It's appealing to look at. Daybreak Town is a banger as far as music goes. I liked that it gives an opportunity to introduce properties that haven't been used yet. But then that makes me think, oh, like, so Wreck-It Ralph was used on Union Cross. Are we not going to get to see a real Wreck-It Ralph world? Because that would have been pretty cool to see in like a KH3 or an upcoming, you know, KH4 or what have you. Yeah, that's quite enough for Union Cross. Okay, so where's KH3 go? If you followed the channel, you already know where it goes. For me, it's my number 2 in the series. It's gonna go 1, 3, 2. And I know like KH3 is like this disappointing game that's there. Obviously, it's not better than 2. How could you say that? You're just a fanboy. You know, I've already laid out all my reasoning for why I have KH3. And there is a considerable gap between 1 and 3. Like 3 still does not meet that magic and that level of, I don't want to say polish, but like love and care and atmosphere of KH1, I guess. And Remind definitely helps 3 in basically every regard in terms of adding more content, adding you know, difficult fights, just a chunk, like hours and hours of extra playtime. It's possibly the best DLC I've ever played, and maybe that's hyperbolic, but I don't really care. For those of you who don't want to watch my like fucking 40 to 50 minute videos on why I think one game is better than another, KH3 just has this way about it of integrating relevant KH original plot stuff into the Disney worlds that KH2 doesn't often attempt. That goes a long way with me. I know the combat and the boss fights are not as engrossing as they are in 2. That doesn't mean as much to me. I know people think the pacing in 3 is really bad. I think it's actually pretty good. I think it's one of the better games in the series as far as pacing goes. I think it's better than 2. The only thing 2 has over 3 in terms of the pacing is the middle point. KH3 doesn't have a definitive middle, but I think it's being disingenuous to say that the only important stuff happens at the end. I also think it's kind of ignoring how all of the other games operated, and that there always is a ton of important stuff at the end. Like, that happens in 2. In 2, there's important stuff in the beginning, middle, and end. In 1, there's important stuff in the beginning and in the end. Same goes for 3. I don't know why suddenly KH3 is open to these criticisms that all the other games were immune to. I think people, when there's a game that's been in development for such a long time and people just get so hyped up, they dream about playing the game, they fantasize about this perfect game in their minds, and then when it comes out, everyone has a license to criticize, but not everybody is good at it. I'm not saying I'm great at it. I mean, for me, the thing with 3 is that I was never going to dislike it because I knew it was going to deliver all of these emotional payoffs. I think you can quibble with the gameplay, you can quibble with the pacing. Like, I have my own problems with parts of it. Like, I don't like that whole time travel sequence in the Keyblade Graveyard where you go to the final world and then you come back and, like, redo parts of it again. I don't like any of that shit. But in terms of, like, getting to see these moments that we have, like, that interim between Birth by Sleep and 3, like, that whole stretch of time where, like, all these characters are in peril, they all need to meet up again, all these assholes need to get their comeuppance. Like, getting to see all these moments happen, getting to watch the Keyblade Graveyard as a world, like, climax 4 times. You got fucking Yensid, you got the Union Cross Keyblade Tornado thing, which is, like, the best thing about that game is that it has this really cool scene in KH3. I don't think I've gotten to talk about it on this channel. I think maybe I talked about it in my KH3 podcast that I link at the end of the KH2 World Rankings, but, like, it is so cool and so thematically, it's so well tied in thematically, how you use the gamer tags of the Union Cross people as a way to defeat the big bad entity in KH3. If the whole message of the series is my friends are my power, like, using actual literal living breathing people who also love this game series that you play, using their quote-unquote power to defeat the bad guy, it's so well done. Like, that's all I can say. I know it's, like, just a stupid name and game contest like Kurt Zisa from the modern age, but it's so well done. It's obviously better done than it was in KH1. When I heard about that, I was like, oh, they're just gonna make it like, there's gonna be like a bunch of Keyblades in the graveyard that you can examine, and they're all gonna be like, oh, this Keyblade belonged to XX Pussy Destroyer XX, you know? But anyway, where was I going? KH3, great worlds, great world choices, getting to see Pixar worlds, getting to see all those emotional payoffs, Roxas and Shion and Axel reuniting, Terra Aqua and Ven reuniting, all of the organization members either getting what they had coming to them or getting a bit of redemption at the end, getting things. I know people bitch about the setup, like everyone wanted everything all the loops to close at the end of KH3. If you were paying attention, you knew that was not going to happen, and this is the end of the Xehanort saga, so to speak, which actually also ended up being a lie because of, you know, Dark Road and everything. That's obviously Xehanort-centric, comes after KH3, so KH3 was not the end of the Xehanort saga. I mean, I think moving forward, like, we're not going to see any more Xehanort. You know, obviously Dark Road is set before KH3. I'm saying any game set after KH3 should not have Xehanort-related stuff anymore. That was the only thing that was promised to us. Everything else, you know, in terms of the Black Box and the Foreteller stuff, in terms of the Yozora stuff, in terms of the Subject X and Lee and Isa trying to find that lost girl, I like knowing that there are things coming in the future for the series. If you need to take some time in this game to set things up, that's fine with me. This was possibly more of a mess than my character ranking video. I was so all over the place. Obviously, I did not have a script. I didn't even really think about what I was going to say before I got in front of the mic. I'm probably going to pay for that because I feel like I just babbled and babbled. Definitely gonna have to edit a lot. If I ever seem intelligent and polished, just know this is how I sound off the cuff. It's a disaster. Thank you guys as always for the support. Got a great response on the Chain of Memories video. People always say, like, I can't believe this guy doesn't have more subscribers. I can't believe it either. You know, I'm out here busting my ass. You know what it is? Like, I'm afraid to share my stuff in certain places. Like, I know I could expose my that sounds weird to say. I could expose myself. I could expose my content more if I were less cowardly about sharing it to places like Reddit. Like, Reddit scares me, which it shouldn't, because every interaction I've had regarding my content on Reddit has been positive. Nobody's been negative about it. But when I see, like, the vote threshold, when it says, like, only 63% of people upvoted this, I'm like, really? Like, you don't like my video? So, like, I haven't posted any videos on Reddit in a while. So I could definitely, like, grow my audience if I had the balls to do that, but I don't. I'm afraid of criticism. I'm not even criticism. I'm afraid of people anonymously pressing a button that says, I don't really want to see this. That just hurts my feelings. I'm not cut out for the big time. But yeah, in the interim between the Chain of Memories video and this one, I'm up to like 325 now. It's 325 more than I ever thought I would have. So thank you guys so much. You're always so nice. I got more scripted and well put together content in the works. Probably some top 10-ish kind of things. I haven't really done like a top 10 thing. I don't want to fall into the trap of only doing that, but I figured that could be a fun exercise, and I think it'll be something that most people haven't done yet. So stay tuned for that. It'll be series wide. It won't be related to just one game. So a bit more of a broad perspective on stuff. Let me know I do want to know, like, where do these games rank for you? How do you rank them? I'm really not super interested in, like, the mainline titles. I feel like everybody's got those in their top 3. I would like to hear how you guys view the side games and stuff, like that B to E tier. I want to know how you guys arrange all those. Like, what's your favorite side game? What's your least favorite side game? I cannot express enough how much you guys make my day when you have kind words to share, and especially when you share your thoughts, and we can all have this collective experience of talking about video games during this scary, uncertain time. Everyone calls it an uncertain time. I think it's pretty certain. Things are shitty right now. Where's the uncertainty there? Things are poop, but we've got each other. We've got video games. We got the magic of the internet. Stay safe, take care, stay tuned, peace out.